All right, hello. So what we have is a carburetor off a Farmall H. Now it's been having some running problems where it seems like the float's sticking, seems like it's running out of fuel. So we're gonna pop it open, clean it out, and see what's going on in there. So here I'll show you a time lapse of disassembly. All right, so we've got everything disassembled here. I'm going to try to show you on video. So the tip of this needle has a rubber tip on there, and I don't know if you can see it in the video here or not, but it gets a little ring worn in there from age, and it helps it to stick inside the seat. So that's probably causing part of our problem. That, and looking in here too, can't really see down in there, but there's quite a bit of rust inside this carb, so it needs a good going through. So what we're going to do is pick out the parts we need and we don't need, and the ones that we need to clean we will put in the ultrasonic cleaner. So I'll catch you up in a minute. All right, so what I've done is I've taken apart everything in there and tried to match each piece up with the new parts that came with the kit, just to see if everything looks, approximately the same size, shape, all that sort of thing, to make sure we want what we got what we want. One thing I did notice is these two, this plug is a little bit different, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean this in case this one's not gonna work right, but we'll see once we get there. But what we're gonna do now is take just the carb halves and that one little piece there and put them in the ultrasonic cleaner. So I'll show you how that works in a minute here. All right, so I got my parts in my ultrasonic cleaner here. I use Simple Green to clean it. So what I'm gonna do is I put the parts in there first, and then I dump the Simple Green in and fill it up to just so that the parts are covered. See, I've used the Simple Green a couple times before, so it's a little on the grody side, but it should work. So we'll go ahead and fill that up so that we're mostly covered here. All right, we got a little bit of that one part of the carb sticking out, but no big deal. So we're gonna turn on our heat function and set this to max, and then we will come back in about an hour. All right, we're back. Well, we let that marinate in the ultrasonic for quite a while, and you can see it turned out pretty good. So what I did is I took it and I sprayed it off really good with the carb cleaner and sprayed everything out. Something else I had to do is some of the old gasket material was left on our flange there, so I just took a razor blade and ground that all off. I also went ahead and pulled out, there's a little brass plug in the bottom here that's used for the overflow drain. What I did is I took an easy out and screwed it in there as best I could down the little hole, and then just kind of pried sideways and it popped out. Then you have to make sure you get out all of this old packing that's in there. Okay, there's a bunch of goo in there, so you don't want that going through the rest of the carb. And there's a new packing that came with the kit. So let's look at our choke shaft here. There is a little bit of up and down play here, so we're going to go ahead and replace that since it came with the kit. So we're going to take our flathead here and get our screws popped out down inside there. There's one. There we go. Screws out, shaft is loose, Work that out of there. And now the shaft should slide out. All right, so we're going to go ahead and replace this little bushing that's in here. And there's a spring in here with a ball that puts pressure on the choke. You can see there's a little dent there. Puts pressure on the choke to keep it open when it's not in use. So we're going to go ahead and replace that as well. Now I'll go ahead and look at our throttle shaft up here. That's actually pretty tight, but a little bit of play in there. So we're going to go ahead and replace that too. So we'll go in here with our stubby screwdriver and take out our screws there. There we go. Almost got it. There, that's loose. And we'll finish the second one. Okay. Go in there and knock those out. Come on, now we got one. Where's the second one? There we go. He's out. Now we can slide our blade out and our shaft should come out. All right, now we're going to go ahead and just blow through these with some carb cleaner to make sure everything's all cleaned out. And I'll come back to you in a second. All right, so we got everything all blown out here. Now off camera, I decided to take out the bushing in there for the throttle shaft. What I wound up doing is taking a drill that was just a little bit smaller than the size of the bushing itself, and I drilled it out and I was able to break it out. So now I'll go ahead and I can take our new bushing and put it in there. And what I'm going to do is take a socket that's basically the same size as use that to pound it in. Another thing we can do here is on the choke shaft, there's a little retainer in there with some felt behind it, so we can take our flat screwdriver and just pry that guy out like so. And actually the felt came right out with it, so we can clean that out a little bit, put new felt in there and put a new bushing back in there. And then we're going to go ahead and pull out this old spring that was in there. You can see the ball that was supposed to be in there is gone. So we'll, there we go, pull out the old spring and we'll clean that out. So I'll catch you back up after we get everything reinstalled here. So we got our bushing pounded in there. Let's check out our throttle shaft to see how it fits now. Slides right in, and there is zero up and down play compared to what we had before. So now we can go ahead and put our throttle blade in. Take a little bit of finagling, it's pretty tight. Get it in there centered as best we can. Now we'll go ahead and start our screws and leave them a little bit loose. And I'll show you why in a minute here. I won't have you watch me finagle with the screws. I'll catch you back up once I get them started. All right, I've got my blade in there and I've got my screws in there loose with a little bit of, I put a dab of red Loctite on there. So we left them loose so we can use that to center our blade in our throttle opening there. So see, we got it loose, push on her, get her centered. Now I can go ahead and tighten down our screws, and that should remain centered in there without hanging up on us. Tighten down the first one, tighten down the second one. Okay, we're tight. Now our throttle moves freely. So now we'll go ahead and work on our choke next. We'll catch you up in a second. All right, so we have our new choke shaft. We got to put our brass retainer on there first. Then we'll go ahead and put our packing on. All right, now we'll take the lower half of the carb body. We'll take our new spring, install it in that hole there, and our new ball. And gently set it on there. Okay, so now we can take our shaft and slide it on there. Now what we can do is take a hammer and lightly tap on this to seat that new retainer in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. quick. My lovely assistant got me my hammer. All right, we'll go ahead and give it a little tap, 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 tap. You can see we're all seated there and we're good to go. Now we'll work on getting our blade in 1 second here. All right, we got our choke shaft in there now. Same thing as before. You want to leave them loose, and then we'll tighten them up once we get the shaft in there to help it center itself. So now this is a trick because you have to push in on the side of the shaft here to make sure that ball doesn't pop out. Now one thing to note here too, so that blade is directional and there's an arrow, so the arrow points up. If it's not fitting, that means your arrow's the wrong way. So here we go, we got it centered where we want it to be, and we'll go ahead and tighten this down. Now these did come with lock washers on them, so I'm not going to put Loctite on there. Whereas on the throttle shaft, there was no lock washers, so we use Loctite on there. Okay, we'll snug those right up. There we go. Now our choke works, and that little ball that wasn't in there before is working really nice. So now that the choke is open, it actually kind of holds it in place so it won't walk on us when the tractor is running and vibrating. So that should be good to go. All right, we'll catch you up when we're reassembling everything. All right, so now we're ready to reassemble the bottom half of our carburetor. So I've laid all of the parts that I'm going to need for the bottom half right here in front of me, and we're going to get started. Something important to note too is make sure to look at all your old parts, and wherever you have gaskets, make sure you have gaskets on new parts. Make sure everything is in use from the kit, so then you'll be in good shape. So first we're going to take our little jet here and drop it in where it's supposed to be, which is right here. And you're going to need a real small screwdriver to get that little guy installed there. So just go ahead and ease it in there. Don't force it, don't cross thread it, because it's going to break really easily. So once you've got it in there seated, again, don't crank on it because it's just brass, so it's pretty fragile. So get it in there and just snug it up. Okay, you're good to go. All right, so we're going to take our bottom half of our main nozzle, it's kind of a plug, and put it on the bottom here where it goes. Make sure it's seated in there where it's supposed to go. And we'll take our main nozzle and drop it down the hole there. Get the threads started as best you can. It's going to be tough working down in there. Okay, now we're going to take our 15/16 ratchet and go ahead and start easing that in there. And this is very fragile also, so be careful. You don't over tighten that because it can snap on you. So just snug, once you got that down in there, snug it up. You can take a screwdriver and just hold it on the bottom ever so slightly and snug it up. There we go. Now that should be seated where it needs to be. So I'm going to take our new packing and stuff it down in there where it goes. This is for our overflow. I'm going to take our new retainer with the weep hole and put it down in there. And we're going to take a socket to seat that down where it belongs. Seated a little too well, there we go. Now we're nice and snug down in there. So now we're going to put in our power jet assembly here. So it came with a new rubber packing. So to make assembly easier, I'm going to kind of partially assemble it. So I'm going to take my needle and screw it into the brass piece down there. I'm going to slide our new packing over the needle. And then we're going to go ahead and slide the assembly down in place. So now everything goes in there at one time. It should assemble a lot easier. I can take our 7/16 here, snug that down a little ways. Now we can take our jet and screw it in all the way until lightly seated, and then back it out 2 turns for a very good starting point. Okay, so there we go, lightly seated right there. So we're going to go half, 1, half, 2. And that'll give us a good baseline for a starting point. Once we get it on the tractor, then we can adjust from there. All right, now we're going to put in our drain on the side of the bowl here. So the carburetor came with just a pipe plug like this in the side there, but the kit actually came with a nice drain cock you can unscrew by yourself here. So the bottom piece threads right in here. Screw it in. Snug that up with our 7/16 socket and wrench. Not too tight, it's brass, snug will do. Then we can take our drain cock and screw that in there. Now if we want to drain out our bowl, you don't have to have a wrench or anything. You can just do it right by hand with that little guy right there. So that works. Last part to the bottom of the carburetor, we're going to put in our idle jet, or idle needle rather. So just like with the power one, we're going to take that and screw that all the way in until lightly seated. Okay. So there we are. We are seated right there. And this is going to come out one full turn. Okay, so here we go. There's half a turn and one turn. All right, now the bottom half is ready. So now let's move on to the top half. All right, now it's time to assemble the top half of the carb. So I'm going to start first with our seat here. Again, make sure that if there's a gasket on the old part, there's gaskets on the new part so that everything seals up as it should. So we're going to work our seat in here. If we can get the thread started, that is. Come on. There we go. Okay, let's get that down there. And we'll take our 7/16 ratchet. Snug that right up. Not too tight again because it is brass. Okay, now what I'm going to do is you want to put your gasket on before you get too far here and forget, because then you're not going to be happy. So you got to put your gasket on in order to get your emulsion tube in here. And now you can put your float on. So first off, we're going to take our new needle and drop it down in there. Then we're going to take our float. I did check our float while we were in the ultrasonic cleaner to make sure that it didn't have any leaks, and it didn't. So I kept it in there, and I put it under hot water to see if any bubbles showed up. It didn't fill up with anything, so we're good. So we'll set our choke on there. We'll take our new choke pivot, work it in from the back side, get it centered there, and lightly tap it in. There we go, that's centered. Okay, now we'll get to work on the rest of it. One second. So before we go any further, we actually do want to check our float height. So I went ahead and I pulled off our emulsion tube there in the middle and our gasket, and you want to check your float height. Now, according to the instructions that came with the standard kit, you want 1 and 27/32 distance from the casting surface to the farthest down part of the float here. So this one was a little bit off, but I went ahead and I adjusted it, and we are just about perfect there right now. So that's how you measure that. Okay, so we'll get everything back together here, and I'll show you the rest of the assembly. One second. All right, so now we're going to put the top half and the bottom half of the carb back together. So be careful you don't hit your float as you're putting it in there. Don't bend it, don't damage it. So just ease that in there really nice and easy there. Make sure everything's sitting nice and flat. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and put in some of our screws. So we got brand new screws with the kit as well. So we'll put in our top screws here. And make sure that gasket isn't in the way as you're putting the screw in there. There we go. Now we got it. Okay, just snug for the moment until we get the rest of them in, and then we'll tighten them up kind of evenly just to make sure that the gasket's not sitting funny or anything like that. So our second one in here. That one snug down. Go ahead and flip it over and get our third screw in there, down over here. Okay, snug that one. Go ahead and snug that one. Go ahead and snug that one. And we'll give them all just one more little turn to make sure everything is as it needs to be. Okay. Okay. And okay. All right. Now we can take our little part here, That goes on this side right here. Screw him in. Snug him down. Take our fuel inlet. Again, make sure that you get that gasket on there. Screw him in. And take a wrench here and just snug him down. All right, let's see here. Choke is working as it should. Throttle is working as it should. Everything's back together. All right, last thing to do is put it back on the old H and see if it runs. We'll catch you back up when we do that. This tractor also had a rusty gas tank, so we removed it, poured in a gallon of muric acid into the nuts and bolts, and then tied it to the wheel of this other tractor and drove it around as you're seeing here, and then cleared it right up and then reinstalled it back on the tractor. All right, fast forward a month and we are up at where the tractor is, so we're going to reinstall the carb on the tractor. So first thing we're going to do is get the this little notch here on the throttle shaft lined up with the hole, the bar on the governor here. So gasket takes a little finagling. Here, actually, yeah, let's get our gasket in place up here while we're messing around. It's gonna be a little bit of finagling to get it in there, but it can be done. Let's get him up here. Yeah. Okay, that's in. Get our gasket underneath. Okay. Now we just gotta kind of force it in. There we go. We're in. All right. So let's get our nuts on here to hold it in place. Okay, that's number one. Get number two. Okay. Oh, not gonna fit. There we go. All right, let's get that snugged up. Gotta have patience when you're working on these old guys. Nothing's easily accessible, it seems like. Okay, snug that up. Get the other side all the way up. Not easy to get to. Okay, get that snugged up. All right, I need to go grab a screwdriver. We'll catch you back in a second. All right, we got a screwdriver. We're gonna go ahead and put these little bolts in here to help hold the governor connection there. Okay. Again, tight quarters, so tough to get to. All right, we're in. Now we need to hook up our choke lever. And the previous owner actually installed a return spring on here to help pull the choke back since they have a homemade. So actually, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some fuel in the tank and run it through to run out some of the old nasty fuel that's in there. You can see it's pretty yellow and gunky, so we'll catch you back up in a second. And we're back. There we go. You can see we got really good flow now. Everything's clear, so we've got all the old nasty gas run out of the system. So now we're going to go ahead and put the rest of this together. All right, so we're going to attach our fuel line here. Careful not to bend the metal line. Get it where it needs to be, and see if I got lucky and line it all up perfect the first time. Oh, still a little off. There, now we got it. Okay, let's snug that up. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and put our intake boot back on. Oh boy. Loosen that up here, see if I can get a little movement out of it. We'll catch you back up once we get that on here. All right, we have everything all together. Only step we have to do now is put the battery in, and we'll see if it starts. So we'll catch you back up when we try to start it. All right, we're back. This is actually Dan's tractor. He's going to start it for the first time here. So made sure the fuel's on, make sure the battery's hooked up the right way. Everything should be good to go. So let's see it, Dan.